Hello, our Queen Bee Rising listeners, and welcome back to the podcast. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by Penny Locaso, who is a behavioural scientist, impact specialist and strategist, a mentor, the founder of hackinghappy.co. Penny helps ambitious women like us lead with purpose without burning out or shrinking themselves. And over the last decade, Penny left a 16-year executive career, relocated her family across the country, and built a business from scratch while raising her son as a single mum. She's the creator of the Intentional Adaptability Quotient, the host of Impact Expert Psychology, also known as the Pennyology Podcast, and she's on a mission to help 1 million women transform self-doubt into confidence, voices into expertise, and impact into legacy. Penny, welcome and thank you for joining us today.
What a lovely introduction. Thank you so much for the invitation.
To begin with, Penny, I'd really love your insights on what leadership looks like in 2025, particularly for women who are tired of the traditional models that are built on dominance or performative confidence.
Oh,
just an easy one to get us started.
What does leadership look like in 2025? Well, I mean, there's two lenses I look at this because I've just done 21 depth interviews for my next white paper around women's perceptions of leadership and what leadership model, what behaviours, and what skills would enable women to step into leadership in a way that actually aligns with how they want to lead. So it's a great question. At the moment, if I look at the perceptions, and one of the questions I asked as part of that research was, when you look out into the world today, what is your perception of the people in places of leadership? And look, I think given the last week, the last month, I think we can honestly say that most people are not happy with what they're seeing or experiencing from people in positions of influence and power. And I think many of us feel disengaged and sad. And it's funny, I just got off a call with my dad and I said it's almost as if humanity has lost its heart. And then one of the other questions I asked women as part of the research was if they could lead and didn't care what anyone else thought and they could redefine leadership on their terms, what would it look and feel like? And the themes that came out of that, I think, give me hope for the future. So women don't wake up one day and say, I want to be a leader. They wake up and they say, I want to have an impact. I want to make a meaningful difference in the lives of others. So if we're trying to attract more women into positions of power and influence and, positions of leadership, rather than, I think, speaking about leadership per se, because there are a lot of negative connotations or meanings that sit behind that unconsciously for women, maybe we need to speak about impact more and being in a role that enables and empowers impact, because that is a word that comes up time and time again. The other themes that came up in terms of how women want to lead, things like, they want to lead by power with, not power over. They're about inclusion, not as a term that we talk about, but as a term that is embodied. So we actually include people in the decisions that impact them and get them to be part of making those decisions. They talk about compassion and kindness as essential leadership qualities. Like, these are, I suppose, I don't want to just make it about women, but I suppose these are the traits that feel innately female or feminine in how women want to lead. And what I've been fascinated by is when I was like, well, is there any model out there of leadership that exists that proves that this works, that proves this is effective? And lo and behold, there is an empirically proven model out of Harvard called Wise Compassionate Leadership, which is basically learning how to do hard things humanely. And it is empirically proven, and those who embody it and those organizations that actually allow their leaders to embody it far and above outperform their peers.
I would so believe that. And when you were going through those list of things, for me, it was like, this is what feminine power is in an organizational setting.
And here's the kicker, right? And I'm sure your listeners will relate to this. These often are the traits that women get punished for.
Mm-hmm.
These are the ones that we're told we're too much. You're too emotional. You're too ambitious if we're confident. Yeah.
Yep.
And then, so you're too ambitious, and yet we want women to be more confident. Well, hang on. So you're too much of this, you're too much of that, you're too collaborative, you're too engaging, it slows everybody down. Like all the too muchness, all the things we've been told are too much, turn out to be the most essential skills that will enable us to create a future that is kind, that is compassionate, and that is hopeful. And the sad thing about the too muchness is that I think because women have been told it for so long, we start to soften our edges and we start to sort of diminish or shadow these very skills, which are the skills that are our edge. And our too muchness leaves us feeling like we're not enough.
Yeah.
So it's like
the irony of it, isn't it?
It is. And this is why I get so pissed off about if I see another confidence course for women, right? And it's not that they're malintended, right? And so many women, even last night, I asked them what the biggest barrier is to them leading the way they want to lead. And they say it's confidence. And I'm like, yes and no. The world women don't need another confidence program. The reason women's confidence is so freaking broken is because we punish them for being who they are and make them feel like they don't belong, that maybe what they're doing is wrong, and make them doubt themselves to the point where they think they've got a confidence issue, rather than us going, it's a systemic problem and the confidence issues will not go away unless I think the system is so broken. It's not about fixing a broken system. Women need to step aside and actually create their own freaking system, because I don't think the current system is fixable.
Well, and
rant over.
What? Over so soon? We've still got time.
Sorry, you've got me on something I care very much about.
The systemic stuff is like, it's so interesting because every time we start looking at what is the problem here, it comes back to the system. And it doesn't matter whether we're talking women, whether we're talking inclusion, whether we're talking racism, ability and disability. It all comes back to how the system keeps pushing people down if they don't fit a particular, often white, male, cisgendered, stereotypical format. And we keep having these conversations though. So I'm wondering what we actually need to do to start breaking this down and out and getting rid of it so we can actually start building something new.
Well, this is where it gets interesting, right? Because it's not going to change overnight.
No.
But I think we're already starting to see the shift. And there's a couple of things that I'm looking at which I think are interesting. So when I say we're already starting to see the shift, what happens is, like I say, because women are told that they're too much, many women, out of self-preservation, who are, I would say, definitely leaders, they are at that level where they could be in positions of power and influence, or they already are there. As a self-preservation mechanism, they opt out. And most of the time that opting out means they go and create their own business, and then they go and employ people, and they create the cultures that actually embody wise, compassionate leadership. So we are seeing so many women like yourself, like myself, who are starting, that's why so many women are starting businesses more so than ever, okay? Because I think that they're like, well, I can't get the kind of leadership I want in the workplace, so I'm going to go and create my own workplace. So it's a slow burn, but I definitely think that's happening, and I'm sure you see that in your work, Tanya.
Yeah, and I think that's where it becomes really heartening, is to see that there are those shifts happening, and it's becoming more and more obvious when you're looking at it the right way. Like if you're looking at it and you're still looking at it the traditional way, that's all you're going to see. But when you start going, oh, well,
Yep.
how many women are there that are starting their own business? And how many of us are actually supporting each other in really different ways because we're looking at it from a collaborative perspective rather than a competitive perspective? And it is heartening. It would be great to see it becoming more overt to give people more encouragement, I guess more hope as well when they are stuck in the trenches, because it's really hard to see your way out.
Without a doubt, and this is where I think community is so damn important, right? And I was talking last night at an event that I spoke at Deloitte in front of 40 women in tech, and I was like, I know this is a slow burn. I know it's a hard slog, but we need to own and embody the style of leadership that we want. And it's going to come with persecution and it will come with judgment. But the more of us who do it and the more of us who sit in community and collectively support and elevate and help each other know that this is okay. This is the pain of change, unfortunately, like I say, right? That is the only way the shift will happen. And if not us, then who, right? If not us, then who? And it's why it's funny. One of the things that came up last night that I've been talking about since International Women's Day this year. So for anyone who's ever worked in corporate, corporates celebrate International Women's Day. It's huge. They spend thousands and thousands of dollars, on speakers like myself. They bring in all the catering. There's loads of cupcakes and merchandise and all of this stuff. And every year we sit there and we have the same freaking conversation about how the system's broken and all of the problems and the barriers for women. And this year, what I noticed was a lot of the professional women that I know were saying to me, I don't even want to participate. I'm so over having the same freaking conversation. So one of the things I've been talking about, and I think we're definitely going to do it, is it's like, how can we actually use International Women's Day as a space for action, not more conversation? I don't think we need to talk anymore. And so we came up with this idea was, well, why don't we create a hackathon where we bring together women who, obviously understand how hackathons work, which hackathons are designed to solve problems. And instead of having another cupcake event, we actually have a hackathon where we tackle some of these issues and look at what we can do as a collective to start to take action around them. And then, like I say, we use International Women's Day as a marker each year to look at the progress we've made around the plans and the actions we've put in place, and then we do it again the year after. So the tagline is hashtag no more fucking cupcakes for International Women's Day next year.
Well, and it's interesting when you say that, because like we've just had Are You OK Day. And for me, I see a very similar challenge in that space, because again, it becomes that tick box process of, yes, we've done the cupcakes, we've had the coffee, we've had the, and it's terrible because there's such great initiatives and ideas to start with, but they just get broken down again by being systematized, because we should be saying, am I okay as well? And I know when I first came across Are You OK Day, I was having a shit day, and my head of department, who was the head of HR, sent an email going, are you okay? And I'm thinking, oh my God, she's noticed and she actually cares. And then when I opened it up, it was just like, oh, we're celebrating Are You OK Day, and I was devastated. Like, it took me from I was having a crap day up and then boom, like, because there was no sensitivity around actually having that conversation. It was just we go through the process, and I can see how we do that with so many things. But having that concept of going, okay, well, enough's enough. We're the next generation of suffragettes, where they're making things happen, and saying, okay, this is the day that we're going to start making change happen. This is the day when we're going to say, no more bullshit. This is the action. We're going to check in. And if you're not doing it, well, let's start talking about accountability, and let's start talking about what that means in terms of, we celebrate organizations that have a great work culture. Well, should we be also promoting businesses that have a really crap one, as in, don't work here? Because this is, so thinking, what are the things that we need to do to make these things real for us, I guess.
I love that. And so that was one of the things that I was talking a lot about this International Women's Day is like, where's the accountability? Like all of this money that's being spent, all of these amazing minds that are brought together into a room to celebrate International Women's Day. Imagine what you could do. And what if corporations said, right, we're committing to action and, we know it won't be perfect, but we're going to have a red hot go. And next year we're going to come back. We're going to have a set of KPIs that we'll set this year to measure how we performed. And next year we're going to come back and we're going to share how we did. And then we're going to reset and we're going to do the same. Imagine that. I love that. I think it's a great idea. But yes, I think but the world is less accountable than ever. I think the lack of accountability is part of, I think, one of the biggest problems, or it underpins so many of the problems that we face. A lack of accountability in leadership.
Yeah. All right, let's shift gears a bit. I want to go back to a white paper, I believe, that you did last year. And talk
my last one.
Expertise and women. So tell me all about it.
So one of the things that I have found after working with thousands of high-performing women is that a woman's relationship with the word expert impacts her ability to become one. So what I was saying was that a lot of women were experts in their field, but very, very rarely would they ever refer to themselves as an expert. And I was like, this is curious. How come? So I went and did the research and wrote a white paper, which people can download on my website, which is called Hidden Figures, Where Are All the Female Experts? And so the first thing I would say is for your listeners to ask themselves, would I call myself an expert publicly? And if you wouldn't, why? What's the story that sits behind that? So what I found from the research and why I asked that question is a couple of things. The first one was that women have a negative relationship generally with the word expert. It makes them, so we call it the ick of expert. And so the reason they have an ick with expert is because they have, again, it's often unconscious, but when they hear the word expert, they visualize a man, or they visualize someone who has a certain set of skills, like a long checklist of skills. And so a lot of women, when I asked them why they weren't experts, said to me, I haven't ticked all the boxes yet that would make me an expert. And I was like, great, okay, let's go there. And so I was like, okay, so therefore, what are the boxes you need to tick that you haven't yet that would make you an expert? And do you know what their answer was?
No,
I don't know. So if you don't know what the boxes are that you need to tick, how can you ever be the thing? Because the target doesn't exist. So that was fascinating. And so what I went and did then was I was like, okay, well, tell me about a woman that you look at and admire who is an impact expert in her field. She's making a difference and you would consider her an expert. And immediately they could all think of someone. I said, okay, so what makes her an expert? Tell me the things that you admire in her that give her credibility. And they reeled off the list. And so what I did is I went and created the checklist that these women could create. And I put it on my website, and you can now download it, and it's called How to Become an Expert Checklist. So that if you're sitting there questioning your expertise, you can download that and basically see where you're at. However, here's the caveat. You don't need to tick every box to be an expert. You do not need to tick every box to be an expert. It's a bit like the old Hewlett-Packard research where a woman will look at a job application and go, oh, I've only got 3 of the 5 skills, can't apply, not skilled enough. A man will look at it and go, oh, I've got 2 of those, I'm definitely applying. And so this is why I say, why do we need to tick every box in order to be something? So that was one of the, and the other, I mean, look, there were a number of findings, but the other finding that I thought was really interesting was so many women were so afraid if they put themselves out there as an expert that someone would call them out as an imposter or a fake.
Yeah.
And so there was a real fear of the judgment of others and being seen as someone who was not what they were positioning themselves as. And for many women, that meant that they would never put themselves out there as that.
Yeah.
So there were a couple of things, that we found that I thought was fascinating. And like I say, there's a whole host of findings, but equally recommendations and really simple things that women can start to do to change their relationship with the word expert, because God knows the world needs more female experts out there influencing the narrative.
I find it really interesting because when I've done different workshops and behavioral studies and things myself, is the word I find a lot of women have challenge with is the word power, because
Oh, yes.
the word power is interpreted as a very masculine, particularly if someone's been through, a domestic violence, or it might be workplace bullying or something. That word power is associated with really bad things, and they don't actually want to have it, as well as not recognizing that they have it, that they've given it away.
Yeah, and this is where again it gets interesting, right? Because for two reasons. One is, I always say the language we use determines our ability to make change. We all speak the same language, right? And well, your podcast listeners, we're all speaking English, so we all understand what we're saying, so we think. But unfortunately, the meaning we attach to the word that we're all speaking about is fundamentally different for so many of us, because it is shaped by our experiences, by our stories, and by the reinforcement of those stories. And so when you talk about a word like power and you drop into your body and go, well, how does that word make me feel? I feel it in my gut. And at the moment, it makes me feel sick. And I am a woman who wants to be in positions of power and influence so I can make change. But that word for me makes me feel sick, because when I think about power, it's, for me, in the context of the world we live in, it feels very negative at the moment, and certainly not something I want to align myself with. And yet what's fascinating is when you look online at people selling programs to women, there's so many people out there selling, step into your power, let me help you become powerful. And I find that really interesting, because we know that word does not connect with women.
Yep. And
So
that's why
you
I
could
frame
get
it
the
as
same
feminine power.
Yeah. And that's why you got to meet women. In order to sell something, you got to meet people where they're at. So yes, they know, yes, they need power. Absolutely, right? And they need to own their power. But I think what a lot of women, women want is, it's like, help me get the opportunities that I want to get. Help me get on the stages I want to get in. Help me get the clients that I want to get. And so meeting them there makes sense, but then giving them power in the back door, that's kind of how I would position that, because the words have a real inner resistance without people even realizing it for many of us.
Yeah. Now, you also often speak a lot about converting self-doubt into an ally. So what are some of your most powerful tools or practices that you use to guide women when they have that self-doubt creeping in?
Give me an example, Tanya. What would be like, what's your kind of, we've all got the inner voice. What's your, what's on repeat for your inner voice?
My inner voice is often around, how do I reach women? Because I have a belief, I guess, that women won't invest in themselves, in their own personal development. Professional can be a bit different. And so my self-doubt is, well, how can I help women if they're not ready to be helped? And does that mean that I'm not the right person to do it because I don't know a way of getting through to that, or through that miasma?
So after studying with Dr. Gabor Mate for a year and studying compassionate inquiry and understanding how trauma works, what I would do with that, and so here's the thing, right? It's not like you can flip that script overnight, because that story comes from somewhere.
Yeah.
And so what I would do, I think there is a lot of power. We spend a lot of time, that story lives in your head, right? That story's on repeat in your head. But the experience that is connected to that story and the feeling that is connected to that story lives in your body.
Yep.
And so one of the most powerful things you can do when you want to understand where these limiting beliefs come from is to get out of your head and the inner battle with yourself, which is what this is.
Yep.
And when you have that story come up, drop into your body and go, what do I feel? And where do I feel it?
Yep.
So what do you feel and where do you feel it when you hear that story?
So I feel a real tension, like a real clenching. And it's usually around my solar plexus, but further back. So it's not right at the front. It's actually sort of more in my core.
And so this comes back to that brilliant book, which I love, which is The Body Keeps the Score, right?
Yeah.
Body doesn't forget. Body doesn't forget. The body, the feelings live on and the stories live on because the body holds on to it. Because I'll guarantee you this tension, this feeling you feel in your solar plexus, there will be a feeling attached to it that you need to kind of explore and label, whether it's fear, whether it's guilt, whatever it is. Like, sit with that, find what the feeling is, write it down. And I sit there and say, so if the feeling for me was fear and it was in my gut, I would be closing down my eyes, I would be dropping my attention into my gut, and I would be saying to my fear, what do you have to share with me? And I would just notice what comes up unfiltered.
Yep.
That's the first thing I would do. So this is, like I say, this is kind of a therapeutic process. It's not going to work in 5 minutes, but it's an extremely powerful thing to do for yourself. The other thing that I would challenge you to do when you've labeled that feeling and you know where it sits in your body, so you're creating awareness, which is the first step to change, I would be asking myself, where did this story come from? When was the first time I believed that I couldn't fix this problem, that I wasn't the person to do this? What happened? Where did that story come from? And go back as far as you can.
Yep.
Because I'll guarantee to you, more often than not, there was a story in our childhood that made us believe that we were not enough.
Yep.
Yeah. And once we start to unpack or unravel, the story that sits behind this, because we are the stories we tell ourselves, then we create awareness when this narrative presents again in the future. We go, it's that story again.
Yes.
It's not a truth, right? Because feelings are not facts. They are information. Okay, so use them as information. Become, a researcher of your own experience and your feelings. And so you disassociate yourself from being in it and being it to saying, well, there's that story. I know where that comes from. I know where it lives in my body. It's coming up again. What's making me feel that way? That's interesting. It's information. It's not truth.
Yeah.
And I find that because you're at arm's length, you're not a participant, you're a witness. That gives you permission to then change the story, to write a different story. And the only way you write a different story is by creating that awareness and giving yourself permission to say, well, let's try on a different story, and doing it on a consistent basis when the trigger presents.
That's such a powerful approach. Thank you for sharing that with us.
I can't claim that it's Gabor's, and he's freaking amazing. Highly recommend his work to anyone who has trauma.
You shared it with us right now. That's the important thing. Now, I'm interested. So coming back a bit to systems, which we've talked about, can you sort of unpack maybe some ideas around how women can design systems around them, whether that's their work, support, habits, whatever, practices, that actually sustain their energy and their influence rather than draining them? I'm full of tricky ones today. I'm getting my money's worth out of you, babe.
Yeah, I'll give you some practical things, right? Because there's no panacea. It's like I'm a big weightlifter. I'm 50 next week. I've been PBing all over the place this week. I did an 85 kilo deadlift this morning.
Wow.
I do 90 kilo squats. I did 135 kilo hip thrust, and I'm 50, right? And the reason I do this is because it relates to so much of what I teach, right? Mindset, behaviors, it's building muscle. And so the only way you get good at this stuff is through consistent practice. And if you stop for a prolonged period of time, again, I think of it like a muscle, you get wastage and you have to rebuild. And so when you come to it with that mindset, it's not about being perfect, which so many women pressure themselves to be, which leaves us just feeling shit. It's about saying, well, you know what, I'm just going to keep showing up and I'm just going to keep trying. And if I fall off the wagon a day or two, it's okay. I've got permission to get back on. I'm not a failure. So that's the first thing. Think of all of this stuff like a muscle that you're building, and it's about practice. And so in terms of systems, the first thing I would say is, what is it that gives you energy? What is it that gives you energy? Because it's different for each and every one of us. Okay. And when you know what gives you energy, I schedule in my diary, literally, I block time to recharge my energy throughout the day. And these are micro moments. It doesn't have to be hours on end, micro moments of recharge, right? 10 minutes is better than no minutes. And here's why this is so important, and it's why so many women are burnt out. There is a theory in psychology called the conservation of resources theory. And basically what happens is when you wake up in the morning, you wake up with a set level of mental and physical resources available to you. Now, how you choose to use them throughout the day, if you think of it a bit like your little mobile phone battery, will determine whether that little battery light gets charged up or whether it just gradually gets depleted over the day. Now, what I see is so many women are great at depleting the battery, and then the body, like we were saying, so all of the feelings and what's going on lives in the body. The body will send off warning signals saying, I'm exhausted, I need to be plugged back in, I need a recharge. Women are brilliant at spending all of their time in their heads, which means they've become great at suppressing what they're feeling, and so they walk over their body's warning signals.
We soldier on.
Now, absolutely. We just have to get it done. Now, that sounds great in theory, but long term, it's a brilliant recipe for some wonderful health issues, because what it does is it means that when you wake up tomorrow, your battery's only on half charge and you wonder why you feel exhausted no matter how much sleep you've had. Your body cannot sustain this forever because you are putting your central nervous system in a state of hyperstimulation, which puts your body into survival mode. So women will find when they're in this constant state of exhaustion that they struggle to make decisions. They will tell me they go to the supermarket and they stare at the cereal shelf at the end of the day and can't decide which cereal brand they want because they're so exhausted. So, decision fatigue creeps in. Their brain goes into survival mode, which means that the rational reasoning centers shut down. You can only think short-term. Long-term decision-making becomes extremely hard, and you're just trying to get through what's in front of you. And what happens is most women want to make shifts. They want to make differences. They want to make changes. And they say to me, I can't do it. Like, I don't know why I can't do this. There's no freaking capacity. There's no energy, and there's no mental space for it to occur because there is no recharge happening, and often hasn't been happening for a long time.
And I think that's why so many women feel stuck, because they can't see a way out because they're just in overwhelm. And that sort of depleted state for so long consistently.
So find one or two. If you're not doing any micro recharges during the day, just put one in a day, one for 5 days, even 4 days. Anything is better than what you're doing now. 5-minute micro recharge. It could be a breathing exercise. It could be getting up and just walking around your house, right? Anything is better than you sitting there strapped to a desk, only getting up to go to the toilet.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing, micro recharges. The number one way to recharge your batteries is movement. Okay. And equally, it is the only proven way to address mental health issues. So, and what I mean by this is medication is extremely helpful if you have mental health issues, if you have anxiety. A lot of my clients have anxiety. Most of us do. It's great if you need it, go for your life. I'm not here to judge. But what I'm telling you is there is no medication that fixes the root cause. So as soon as you stop taking the medication, all it's done is suppress the symptoms. The problem's still there. You haven't done the work. Okay. So the best way to actually be able to reduce these symptoms, and it's proven time and time again, is physical exercise. And it's why at the age of 50, I prioritize it. Like it's not something I do as a reward at the end of the day. And I don't generally exercise at the end of the day because I know I won't do it. I will find so many busy things to do. I do it first thing. It's non-negotiable for me. And I think, the more of us who do that's what creates energy, moving your body, and it makes your mind healthy as well. So the other thing I would say, which I have loved, and it's so simple, we are brilliant at focusing on all the things that we haven't done, not the things we have, which means that we get to the end of the day and we beat ourselves up and we feel more shit. Okay. So there's a brilliant little practice called a progress journal. And basically all you do is you sit, I do it in bed at night before I go to sleep. And it's almost like closing the tabs on the day. And I write down 3 things that I have done throughout the day that show that I have made progress to building that muscle of working towards my long-term goals. Now, it can be as simple as I went to the gym today. I went to a yoga class. I walked the dog, and that is feeding my long-term goals because I want to be a healthy and happy 50-year-old woman, and I equally want to be a mobile 80-year-old woman.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it doesn't matter how tiny it is, but I think acknowledging the progress you're making is so powerful because we know, again, the science tells us, motivation to continue on and not sink into the hole that you spoke about earlier and feel so alone in this journey that we're on. Motivation comes from seeing progress.
Yep.
And I think too many women don't focus on the progress. We focus on the lack.
Yeah. And we often think of it as if only I think more positively, it will change it. But we've actually got to take that real action, that physical action, as you're saying.
Move your body. I mean, I know we hear it all the time, but seriously, move your freaking body. It makes such a difference. It's like, how often do you feel stuck in something and you're like, and this is the thing, right? It's the things that we think will slow us down that actually make us go faster.
Yeah.
That's what I think is the irony. And there is, you can't deny the science. There is so much science to support this. And yet we all still are on this hamster wheel spinning faster, faster, faster. Space creates speed towards the things that matter to you. So value space, the space to move, the space to think, the space to reflect.
Yep, absolutely. Now, let's talk menopause. And you personally, what's been your experience so far, and have you found that influences your perspectives and your work?
Great question. I reckon up until like 18 months ago, I was like, oh man, I've nailed this. I'm going to get through. I'm going to be one of those lucky ones. I was like, I'm winning. I'm 48. Nothing's any different. Woohoo! Oh, what a shock. I think like so the thing that I never knew before this was that I just thought I was getting through because I never had hot flushes. And so what I didn't know was there are so many different symptoms that were not talked about, thousands, and everyone's experience is different. And I think the conversation's being elevated, which is great. But I think that was probably the biggest shock to me because the thing that hit me like a ton of bricks, I've always been a great sleeper. And my sleep just became a disaster and I couldn't work. I was like, I'm not doing anything differently. Like, why can I not sleep? Why? I started waking up at 2 a.m. in the morning and I've never had anxiety in my life. And I would be anxious about things that didn't matter, like things that I actually wasn't concerned about. It would be like this overwhelming feeling at 2 o'clock in the morning and I'd be wide awake. I'm like, what the hell is this? So that was probably the rudest awakening. And I don't know, but for me, if I don't sleep, I'm a horrible person.
Yeah.
There's a reason why they use it as a form of torture in prison camps because it's highly effective, right? Makes us crazy.
It's so funny you mentioned that because my husband said exactly the same thing when I was complaining about not getting sleep last night.
It's exactly that. So my experience, in some ways I am lucky, right? My worst experience problem has been sleep. I also decided, because I'd been on the pill for years, that I would go off the pill, because I was like, oh, well, I'm nearly 50, and apparently I didn't even know this. Apparently you shouldn't keep taking the pill after 50. It increases the rates of stroke and all of this sort of stuff. So I was like, well, I'll go off the pill and see if that makes a difference. Oh my God. So the periods I had, I was literally so weak from the loss of blood that I couldn't leave the house for 24 hours. And again, I've never had any problems with periods. I've actually had a really dream run in that domain. It was like literally debilitating because I was so exhausted. So they're the two things. And so I've done a couple of things. One is I started there's a lot of women doing amazing work in this space. There's a woman out there called Menopause with Grace. But there's so many women doing great awareness work and in corporates doing this work. So I started talking to a lot of them on my podcast. I just wanted to understand.
Yep.
And I was just blown away by how little we still know about this and how little, women experience. It's just so under talked about and you're so underprepared. I did a lot of research around HRT, and again, because I love the science, what blew me away there was the misconceptions around HRT. Now, I'm not a doctor, but I've listened to a lot of scientists. There's this belief that it creates breast cancer, and it's of a single study. It was very
wrong and bad.
It's wrong, and it's created a lot of women I know have used HRT, and it's like literally they've said it saved their lives.
Oh, yeah, completely.
And so I would say if you are someone who has a negative perception around HRT, go and actually do your research, because what we've been sold is bullshit. And for so many women, it's been a savior. And, each to their own. You do you, whatever works for you. I have gone on melatonin, which I found really helpful for my sleep, which I was happy with because I'm a big fan of trying to go natural first and also just trying to hack the system, like work out, change habits and things like that. So, yeah, my experience has been an interesting one. Apparently I'm still in the thick of it because they say it can go for like 10 years. But
well, mine started at 38 and I'm not quite over yet, and I'm 50. So, yeah.
Well, that's the other thing that I would say to your listeners that blew me away. The amount of women, when I started talking about this, that came to me and said that they basically went into early menopause, right? They were in their early 40s or late 30s, and they would go to the doctor and the doctors would dismiss them, and they felt like they were going crazy and just say, it's not possible that you're in menopause now. And it's just not true.
Yeah.
It's just not true.
Yeah. And we've come a long way, like you say, the last few years. And I think for some of us who work in that space, we're seeing each other's feeds all the time and socials, and we're thinking, oh, yeah, people are talking about it more. But that's not necessarily the big picture. That's not necessarily what everyone's seeing.
No, and I think it's like you say, it's what's in your feed. But I mean, I only started to see all the stuff that was out there because it became a problem for me, and also I started to notice how many of my clients, because a lot of the women that come to me, they're high performers, they've had huge success, and they're kind of at the top of their game and then looking for the next thing.
Yeah.
And so many of them were telling me, I feel like I'm going crazy. Yep. And so they were at that stage of life where they were, most of them, over 35. And I was like, oh, why are all these women thinking they're crazy,
Because essentially people are telling them they're crazy because it can't be menopause, therefore you must be making it up or something else. I mean, that was why, having your uterus removed was called a hysterectomy, because it was supposed to remove the hysteria that we create.
I didn't even know that. That's horrible.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. That's like, oh God. There's words for women as they go through different stages of life, and over 50 was crone.
Yep.
Are you aware of this?
Yeah, that's why I tend to reframe it. And so we don't go straight into winter, we go into the Marga stage, which is like the wiser, but more that sort of still creating and still really powerful. It's like that powerful stage, but there's a lot of derogatory terms around women. I mean, it's like spinster and all these different ones. It's you don't have male equivalents.
Nope. The crone, the cougar, I just,
Yep.
keep pushing us down.
I know. So you've got to laugh because, it's been going on for a long time. And if we don't get a sense of humor around it, we'll all go crazy. And not just because people are telling us we're crazy, but we will actually really struggle with that. So, and it's an interesting one. Like, there's so many misconceptions and messages that we're not getting out. Like, you could still get pregnant when you're in perimenopause. So, stopping the pill at 50, if you're not doing something else, you can still get in, a world of trouble. So there's so many things.
The idea of having a baby now, I'm just like that. That is like a living hell. I love my son. I love being a mum, but it's so funny how, I always say different seasons of life, you want different things. Child at 50 is not something I want.
No, not starting again now. That's just a bit much.
I just don't have the energy and the patience for it. It just requires, there's not much else in the world that requires so much of you as a woman.
Yeah. Your whole self, every level, energetically, spiritually, emotionally, mentally, physically, everything just goes into that experience.
It's your whole sense of being, right? Everything about you is about keeping this little thing alive.
Yeah. Okay, so coming back to you now, not worrying about the menopause because we know we're gonna get through there and we're gonna be okay. But what are you most excited about right now? What's coming up for you? What have you got happening?
Oh, that's a good question. Look, I'll always talk about what's going on for me because there's a lot of interesting things that come into my world, and some of them come off and some of them don't. There's two things I'm really excited about. I'm really excited about pulling together the analysis of the research that I've done around women's perceptions of leadership and how women want to redefine leadership, and putting that out into the world because it's different from all the other research that's out there, which is around how do we get more women into leadership? I'm like, how do we actually make women want to lead?
Yeah. Why would we want to be in that space right now? Yes.
Correct. And so I'm excited about that because it's always fun to put something new into the world that shifts perspectives or empowers women to go, oh my gosh, I can do this. So that's exciting. I'm excited about starting my master's in psychology next year. I've just been spending hours applying, which takes forever, having just finished honours and writing my thesis. So that's, I'm going to qualify as a psychologist when I'm 52. Woohoo! And the third thing I'm excited about, which is a little bit random and may not come off, is a potential collaboration with an amazing AI expert out of Silicon Valley who I've been speaking to this week, who has created this amazing program which teaches people how to find purpose and meaning whilst learning how to use AI intentionally.
Ooh.
And I actually think finding purpose is going to become more important than ever because I think AI is going to disrupt people's work so much. And there's so many people that without work don't have clarity on what their purpose is. And so getting ahead of the curve. Correct. And so not only does this program teach you how to use AI properly, help through the process of finding your purpose, equally, it builds into your AI your purpose so that everything that comes out of the AI is in alignment with the purpose you have.
Nice.
And I was like, this is gold. And so it's in its very early stages. They've run 3 cohorts. The response has been phenomenal. So I'm going to do the program in 2 weeks, and he's very interested in collaborating as a partner. And so I would love to bring that to Australia. And that, because like I say, it's completely aligned to the work that I do, but I just think you can't ignore AI, and it's the number one use case. The number one use case of AI at the moment is therapy.
Yeah.
And so I'm very curious about how we use it ethically to help people live better lives and more fulfilling and flourishing lives.
Oh, beautiful. I love that. Okay, finally, One last question. If there's one message that you want every woman listening today to walk away with, what would that be?
Oh, you are enough. It is enough.
Love that.
Yeah, you are enough and it is enough.
Thank you so much, Penny, for sharing your journey, your experience, your insight, and your strategies. For our listeners, if you would like to go deeper, you can check out Penny's Pennyology Podcast, her Impact Makers program, her research-led movement of If Not You, Then Who, and all the other things that we've spoken about today. Penny, best way for people to connect with you?
They can go to my website, hackinghappy.co, or find me on Instagram under my name or on LinkedIn.
Sweet. Awesome. And we'll make sure we'll put that in the show notes as well. Thank you so much for joining us on the Queen Bee podcast. And everyone, until next time, let's keep leading with courage, clarity, compassion, including self-compassion. Thank you.